Go baby, what's good guys? Yoku here, and I saw some comments mostly on Reddit. There's a whole thread about it, basically asking who's going to be more meta. Up front, I don't think either of these characters are like, I don't think we have enough information about the game and where the game is going to be able to tell anybody like, okay, yeah, blank and blank are going to be more meta, simply because this game works off of the weaknesses and break system as well as what you're able to do with X team, right? So Seele having the quantum ability or the quantum element, and she wants to be able to break enemies super fast. She wants to be able to defeat enemies super fast. Her particular traits and passives allow her to do stuff that, like, even if you had the break meter, it probably wouldn't matter as long as she's strong enough to just straight up obliterate you. And then Jing Yuan, Jing for short, because I don't want to butcher his name any more than I already have, but Jing doesn't care about anything. Like, he's got an incredible amount of break potential. He obliterates all the enemies on the field because he has strong, solid AoE, and he's got great single target damage. So he's got both, but they each do the same thing, or they target the same goal, right? Obliterating the enemy, but they do it differently. Now, I don't have Seele. This is going to be someone else's Seele that I went to the friends list and I got lucky enough to find it. There are things that I want to talk about in regards to Seele and Jing that are pretty much a comparison of like, who should you pull, right? Should you save for Seele or should you save for Jing? Seele is the type of character where she is pretty much going to blast through the enemy. But as I've told Moon, and I've been trying to tell other people, it's not that Seele is bad. I think Seele is incredibly strong. I think she's a great character. I think she's super solid. I'm 100% pulling for it. I think Seele is conditional. So in order for Seele's talent to work, which is the resurgence or reappearance, for her to trigger it, she needs to kill something. She has to defeat it, and then it happens. So there are going to be situations where, let's say you're fighting a boss. If the boss never summoned any other enemy, or you kill all the other enemies, but you're not strong enough to defeat the boss or significantly weaken the boss, you just don't get any of this, right? Like, you never get reappearance. Your damage does not increase by 52%. None of this happened. None of these abilities happens. This passive never comes into play. So sure, you can boost your speed by 25% for 2 turns by using her skill. You could still use her ultimate and get a crap ton of damage out of whatever's going on. None of that triggers this. So if you don't have an enemy to do whatever this needs, you don't feel the condition, you don't get to use Seele. Like, this character becomes non-existent at that point. I know that sounds really harsh to say it that way, but I'm using this in terms of like how to explain this the best way possible for comparison purposes. Very strong character. Seele's a Saiyan, and then when you kill something, she becomes a Super Saiyan, but then it goes away. It's like a temporary Super Saiyan transformation. She can't hold it. Now, I don't have her light cone, and this player does not have her light cone either. So I'm gonna use this website that I have in order to talk about what her light cone offers before we get into the light cone for Seele in particular. It's called Flowers and Butterflies, or In the Night, my bad. It's called In the Night, but the ability that it has is Flowers and Butterflies. It increases the wearer's crit rate by 12%. While the wearer is in battle, for every 10 speed that exceeds 100, it's gonna increase the wearer's basic attack and skill damage by 6%. Then it increases the crit damage of their ultimate by 8%. It can also stack up to 8 times. So for the basic math point, once you exceed 180, right? Like, once your speed hits 180, all of these happen, or all of these are maxed out. Your basic attack and skill damage go up to 50 or 48%, right? Go up to 48%, and then your crit damage goes up to 64%. Those are the caps. That's the highest you get, and that's the crit damage on the ult, by the way. Crit damage on the ult. So you're not hitting your ult and then you're doing an extra 64%. You still have to crit, which means you still need what, the 50% plus or 70% plus crit rate in order to guarantee the crit. I'm sure there are other things or other stipulations that'll fall into play to make your crit happen, but for the basic terms of what I'm talking about, your attack and skill damage will be increased by 48%. That's great. That's awesome. That's if you hit 8 stacks. Seele is the type of character where she wants to obliterate and blitz through the enemy. She doesn't want 8 stacks, right? Like she doesn't want to hit 8 stacks unless it's turn 1, turn 2, I got 8 stacks, right? But if that doesn't happen and it's taking you 8 turns or 5 turns to get 8 stacks, you're playing Seele wrong, right? Or maybe you're going up against something that is not for Seele. Your goal is to kill things as fast as possible. Seele does not want a game to last more than a few turns because, again, going back over here to her skill, her talent, right? This resurgence passive can't keep triggering if there are no enemies around. You want Seele to wipe the floor with the enemy by the time all the other enemies are down, right? That's what you want from Seele. That's how powerful she is or can be. Now, that's her light cone in particular, right? In the night. There is this other light cone that you can get for free, mind you, for free, that does relatively the same thing, although slightly, like, I don't want to say slightly worse, but not situational. That's the key thing, right? Not situational. This Cruising in the Stellar Sea increases the wearer's crit rate by 8% and increases the crit rate against enemies with HP less than or equal to 50% by an additional 8%, which means theoretically she could have up to 16% crit rate, which is already higher than the 20 or 12% crit rate that her own light cone, her signature light cone, will be giving her. Now, you also add into the fact whenever she defeats an enemy, she increases her attack by 20% for 3 turns. What I'm not aware of, and if anybody is able to check this with this particular light cone, because I know there are a few people who do have this light cone, I need to know if this stacks. I looked around, I can't find anyone willing to give up that information. So if anyone in the comment section is able to help me out here, that'd be awesome, because I'm sure all of us would appreciate that. If this stacks because of how Resurgent works, you theoretically could pop the 48% or even 60%, right, on your own within 2 turns. So now you just have double attack buffs, and now it's at 40%, plus your crit rate is at 16%, theoretically, of course, in order to do whatever else you need. And of course, it's still a 5-star. It's still going to give you an incredible amount of attack for whatever you got going on. That is Seele. Quick summary of that. I think, again, this character is great. I think because the light cone is free, and for those that don't actually know where, let me show you. You come into the simulated universe, you come down here to the bottom right, you go to Herta Store, and then boom, there it is. You need 8 of these, right? You get these from completing the simulated universe. And of course, the higher the floor, the tougher it is, the more you're gonna get. So simply by going through world 1 through 6, if I'm not mistaken, should give you enough to be able to buy Cruising in the Stellar Sea. You get to world 6, you should be able to get a light cone of your choice. Don't buy these. Don't buy these Star Roll passes, please. Like, I get it. You guys really want to get some pulls going on. Don't waste that, okay? If you're just like balling out of control with a bunch of these tickets, sure, do whatever you want. So that, but anyway, back to Cruising in the Stellar Sea. This as a free-to-play light cone that anybody can attain through hard work, right? Hard work and dedication, as Rock Lee says. Sheer willpower plus Seele. If you pull her, great, awesome. Don't spend money. Don't spend on In the Night if that's how you're looking at that, because this one is just as good as In the Night. In the Night is like a little bit better, right? Like, oh, okay, cool. I get a 3% increase. I'm just making up number. Cool. If you want to spend the money for it, you want to do the pulls for it, that's fine. Now let's get into what I'm talking about here in the comparison. This MFer is OD. All right, Jing is crazy good. You can compare between him and Seele, who you want. They are not the same type, but they accomplish the same thing. Eradicate the enemy in as few turns as possible by outputting an absurd amount of damage. His speed is not as quick as hers, right? But he can also increase his speed as well. Or at least he can increase his persona speed, I should say that. His thing is his persona, Lightning Lord. He's pretty much gonna persona, and then he summons a persona at the beginning of the battle. And then this has its own stats based off of Jing's stats. So the higher Jing's stats are, the more that you're gonna get from this persona. Usually this persona attacks right after Jing. From what I've seen in the video clips of gameplay for Jing, it's Jing goes and then persona goes right after him, right? So that's theoretically how that works. Persona also increases its own damage, or it has its own damage of up to 33% from Jing, right? You have all these crazy things that happen with him, and then his can max out at 10. So he gets his speed increased by 10 every time his attack count increases. The ultimate increases the attack count for 3. That's 30 speed right there. The technique increases it by 2. That's 50%, right? That's a plus 50 speed already. The persona is now naturally at 120, which now you have changed the order. Now it's going to be persona, right? Because the persona speed is 120, and then Jing's speed is 99. This is if you did this theoretically, of course, and then if you keep increasing the attack count, because every time he attacks, his attack count increases by 1. Again, you just max out towards the 10, and now you're hitting the 160. The 160, there we go. You're hitting 160. His skill, Lightning Lord, increases the attack count by 2 from the skill, right? So you don't have to depend on the ultimate to do that either. You can hit 10 in just a couple of turns, especially if you play him correctly, and this hits everybody. Now, none of that is situational. None of that is situational whatsoever, right? Like, Jing is not summoning Persona and then, oh, my Persona does a shit ton of damage if I crit my enemy. Like, if I get a crit, I summon Persona and then I do a shit ton of, like, no. By himself, he is just, boom, Persona, and then it does an absurd amount of damage. Let's move on to his light cone, because this is something that Moon and I were just talking about. And it's only because of her that I even bothered to look at this, because I wasn't thinking about the light cone at all. This is an absurdly strong light cone. Like, and it's so strong for him in particular because you can build around what's missing. This increases the wearer's crit damage by 32%. It's going to increase his skill and ultimate damage by 20% on top of whatever he's already doing, right? And then he gets the special thing or whatever, Somnus Corpus. Whenever he triggers a follow-up attack, Somnus Corpus will be consumed and the follow-up attack damage increases by 48%. Guess what counts as a follow-up attack? Ding, 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 ding. The Persona. He does the thing, Persona triggers or Persona follow-up and does whatever. Boom. Increased Persona damage by 48% on top of the 33% that it already does, on top of whatever damage boost it's getting from everything else that's going on in the battle. When I tell you he wipes the floor with things by just outright obliterating something, I mean it. Again, these things are less situational than what Seele's would be. In fact, I'm willing to say that these are not situational in outside of the whole follow-up attack thing. Increasing the crit damage, you can increase his crit rate by just getting, you know, of course, those from Genshin. We know how this works. Artifact rolling, bro. You're gonna have to get some good artifacts, good relics, get your crit rate up to 50% or higher. Call it a done deal. You're golden. The skill and ultimate damage increasing by 20% is great for him because that buffs everything that he's doing anyway. And then he's gonna buff his Persona so the Persona can do equivalent damage as well. Jing is absolutely cracked. I'm in love with this character just by looking at him without even having played him yet. I've already got a video talking about the teams. You can check that out in the pinned comment down below. But ultimately, finishing off and looking at Jing here, Jing is an incredible monster. It's a monster of a character, dude. If you are having trouble deciding who you want, it really just comes down to one of two things. Do you want a situational character or not? You want a character that touches the field, summons a Persona, and then blows everybody up? Or do you want a character that touches the field, blitzes through everybody like they're Flash, and then once everything else is done, they don't get to be Flash anymore, right? Like, Seele doesn't get to be a Super Saiyan Flash anymore. She's just regular Flash with, like, I don't know how to use my powers. That's what you're getting. I'm not saying that Seele's bad. Don't get it twisted. I've repeated that so many times. I'm saying that Seele is situational, and it gets to a point where, because of the way the game works, even with the gameplay you're seeing now, if there is nothing happening, there are no side enemies for Seele to kill. If she cannot score a kill, she never triggers Resurgence, which means her kit doesn't actually work. Like, the thing about her kit doesn't work because she can't trigger it. Jing, on the other hand, does not need something to trigger his kit. He touches the field, summons Persona, and then they beat the shit out of you like in JJK. And if you don't know what JJK is, watch better anime. Let me know how you feel about this in the comments down below. If you agree or disagree, or you just, you know, you like whichever character, if you're saving for a third character, so on and so forth. I don't know the third banner. Please don't ask me. I can't answer that. I don't even know if this banner is going to be the second or first or whatever. I'm just giving you guys the information from the beta, and we're using cognitive thinking. I think that's the term that I want to use there, but if not, then whatever. We're theory crafting here. All right, guys, characters cracked. Both characters are cracked. One's situational, one's not so situational. In fact, it's not situational at all. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.